The thing about Mary J Blige is she knew how to turn her pain into art.
If it wasn't for oh.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming back with another artist spotlight. If you haven't checked out my other ones, I'm gonna leave the playlist right here. And this one is about the one and only Mary J Blige. Yes, Mary J Blige. Now, Mary J Blige, if y'all haven't noticed, if y'all watch my other ones, there's a pattern. And like my favorite artist who I feel like I want to give a spotlight to, Mary J Blige is another artist who has been like a soundtrack to my life. And I'm pretty sure to a lot of y'all's too. Even if you didn't notice it, think about your younger years, your high school years, your college years, and even to your adult life, you know? And here's the thing, right? See, Mary J Blige, she's one of those artists that I remember growing up listening to. Like, you know, I had those type of parents that I listened to that good music, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. I remember my mother loved Mary J Blige. She had her first two albums. I remember she played them out. And that even translated to me today. You know, I'm 25 now, and you would think like 25-year-olds now is like you listen to the latest hip hop or R&B and all that stuff. And you know, that's true, they do. But with me, I always consider myself an old soul, and I love that old school R&B, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And Mary J Blige is one of the pinnacle artists of that genre, of that gap between like that, you know, R&B, hip hop, edge, with the hardcore R&B vocals over some hip hop edge beats. But then she knew how to soften it up. She knew how to give party records, knew how to do those mid-tempo records, and it's just a perfect blend. Mary J Blige, people don't, if you really look at her catalog, Mary J Blige is really versatile. And in the beginning, you could say, some might say it was the same type of pattern or themes with her music, but as she's progressed, you get to see the evolution of Mary J Blige, and you get to see the different elements, the different choices, her versatility, her diversity, and her experimenting with her music choices, her vocal choices, the instrumentals, her collaborations. And Mary J Blige is just an overall legend, undisputed legend, legendary, iconic. And from the variations of her blonde hair to her street style dress to the different, like Mary J Blige, she's really a once in a lifetime artist as well. And I can't even say that she don't get her props, because she does, you know. And after a while, you know, it's like in this industry, it feels like certain people, they just blow up. And Mary J Blige, ever since she came out, you ever look at some old footage? How the crowd is rocking with her, like, and y'all look at some old footage. 90s crowds and the early 2000 crowds did not play. So if you was whack, they were just gonna sit there and just embarrass you, make you feel embarrassed. And it's just like awkward, secondhand embarrassment. But the crowds always rock with Mary J Blige, and she just had that effect, you know. She had that appeal where it's like you could connect with her, even if it was an emotional song or it was one of those songs that got you rocking, knocking, you know, your head bopping, you know. She's one of those artists that you can just connect with her and just feel her pain, feel her joy, and it's always an experience listening to her and watching her perform live. Like, you cannot tell me you hear the intro to this if it don't get you out your seat dancing. At least it makes you like bop your head. You know, Mary J Blige I'm so glad that she was able to be discovered, and you know, her love for Anita Baker and Uptown Records. That's another thing. Mary J Blige is a songwriter. She knew how to work with producers. And the thing about Mary J Blige, another thing is, she and her team of producers, they knew how to take a sample and use it magically, beautifully. Dope. Is dopely a word? No. But you know, y'all know what I'm saying. You know, let's go down the list. What's a 401? Classic. My Life, classic. Share My World, classic. A lot of those songs on those albums, a lot of those songs on those albums, you really listen to it or you look it up, they come from samples. But the thing is, Mary J. Blige knew how to take that sample and make it her own. Like, to the point where it's like, oh, that sounds like, but it's like, no, that's Mary J. Blige's song. You know, that might have been a song back in the 70s or the 80s, but she really took it and made it her own. You know? And that's a talent. Along with her singing ability and her writing ability, really taking a song and crafting a song from scratch is a talent that's to be respected. I'm making a tweet about this where I said all Mary J. Blige did in the 90s was make hits. And then somebody commented, was like, oh, when did she stop? And I said, no, I never said she stopped. But I'm just highlighting her 90s eras. You know, and you know how I really looked at it? And it really took into effect of like how much I really listened to Mary J. Blige. Her older songs, you know, from the 90s and on to the early 2000s, is, you know, when Spotify does your wrap up of the year where it tells you your most listened to songs, your most listened to artists, what categories you listen to the most, all of that, right? I'm gonna post mine's right here. This is my top three. And you would think like, oh, you know, all these different songs or all these different artists that came out. No, I'm an old soul. Like and sometimes you don't realize. I'm like, damn, like you really. Sometimes I get into a Mary J. Blige album and I listen to that album for months. Like, what's a 411? I remember listening to that for 3 straight months. Then I got into My Life. I listened to that for another 5 months. Then I got into Share My World, and I listened to that for a few months. And then, you know, I even made my own playlist of Mary J. Blige where I just, you know, bounce back and forth from her songs. The thing with Mary J. Blige, like I said in my Mariah Carey video, is she knew how to grow with the times. She didn't follow trends necessarily, but she knew how to grow with the times, you know, evolve as an artist. You know what I'm trying to say? Because you know how as time progresses and it's like, okay, the 90s sound kind of fades out and then it's the early 2000s. Mary J. Blige, she knew how to assimilate to that. So she had Family Affair, that was a big record. Then it was No More Pain. Then going on to 2005, where she had Can't Be Without You. That was an era. And I remember
And I can't be without you, baby.
I remember the 2 big albums of that year. It was like Mary J. Blige and Jamie Foxx were Unpredictable. And they were like fighting for the top spots. And they were like the top 2 albums at that time in that year, 2005. And I remember my father had both those albums. And I remember I'd be in the car with my parents in the back seat and we would rotate. Like one day we listened to Mary J. Blige all day. The next couple of days we listened to Jamie Foxx, and it was just like a rotation. And that Mary J. Blige album, I remember just sitting back listening to it, having certain songs on repeat, and just really absorbing the music, the vocals, the instrumentals, and just really, it was one of those, you know how you just love driving in the car, especially when you was a younger kid, in the back seat, you just love listening to the music, like just vibing out, and it's just like your mind goes into different places, just listening to certain songs, and that was really an experience, and just you know, watching and witnessing her evolution as an artist. You can look on YouTube and just see her earliest videos to her mid videos to, you know, even the music she does now. And like I was saying before, even though people might say her music she does now doesn't hold up to what she did back in the day, it is what it is. Like at this point, Mary J. Blige is doing it because she has a love for it. And that's another thing. Listen, Mary J. Blige's vocals. She's the type of vocalist where it's real raw and gutter. And you can feel her pain. Even when she's singing the more happy records and the more joyful records, you can feel her emotions in it. And it's like, you really connect with it. Because it's the same thing where it's like, it's one thing to sing just to hit notes and to be technical and do a run and go low and go high and all that, right? But it's another thing to sing with emotion to where it's like, even if, because you know a lot of people like to get on Mary J. Blige for not being the best technical singer and for being flat sometimes, even if people like to say Mary J. Blige is not the best, most technical singer, sometimes when I listen to her, especially her earlier to the 2000s, there's not it's not so bad where it's like, oh my god, she didn't hit that note. But it's just like you feel her pain, you feel her emotions, and it sounds fine to me. You know? It's like people have this thing with vocals where it's like you gotta be a technical singer, but you gotta have emotion, but then it's like, okay, you gotta scream and do runs and be loud. And Mary J Blige know how to do that, but then with Mary J Blige, people say, "Oh, she's not the best technical singer," or she has a tendency to go flat, or all this. It's just like, but my thing is, when I listen to an artist, when I listen to a song, I want to feel the emotions. And even though I know not every song is meant to be emotional or whatever, I want to feel something. You know, sometimes I listen to it could be, sometimes I've been listening to some Mary J. Blige songs and I get like the goosebumps or my hair starts rising. And I just start thinking about certain things and I'm like, wow, she made this song 20 something years ago and I can still feel it. That's the type of artist Mary J. Blige is. She knew how to put her pain in the music. She knew how to turn her pain into art. And it's always an experience listening to her. And going off of that, Mary J. Blige is one of the only few artists I've had the experience and the thrill of getting to see perform live. Because I don't go out to concerts like that and all of that. But I remember my senior year of high school, there was a charity event. Because I was in a big college preparatory high school here in New York. And downtown New York, there was a big charity event. And I remember they was telling us about it and we was all like, okay. And it was like, do you want to go? Do you want to go? And we was like, all right. And it was like, it's going to be some celebrities there. It's going to be nice performances. And we was like, all right, tell us some more. And they was like, okay, LL Cool J is going to be the host. We was like, okay. Then it was like, oh, Justin Timberlake is going to be there. They give a speech. We was like, okay. And I think his wife, Jessica Biel, I think. And then here's where I really realized Mary J. Blige's impact. Now, mind you, at the time, I'm a senior in high school. I'm 17 years old, right? My high school was predominantly black and Latino students. So it's a whole bunch of 17-year-old, maybe some 16-year-old black and Latino students. And I remember our principal was like, oh yeah, and it's gonna be a big performance by Mary J. Blige. And we was all like, what? Mary J. Blige? Everybody was like, okay, I wanna go. Like, people heard Mary J. Blige was gonna perform, and all of a sudden, everybody wanted to go to this charity event with the attention of just seeing Mary J. Blige perform. And I was one of them, because I was like, and I'm not saying, here's another thing, because a lot of people try to make it seem like R&B artists, who is like their main core, their main core fan base might be R&B fans, but people think that certain artists like Mary J. Blige or like Faith Evans, like their core audience is like black people, urban black people. Surprised me because, like I said, at the time I was 17 years old, so seeing a whole bunch, I know a lot of black people. I know they know who Mary J. Blige is. I know Mary J. Blige has appeal. She has worldwide appeal, but it kind of like surprised me to see like a whole bunch of 17-year-old like Latino kids like Mary J. Blige. Oh, I want to go, and I'm like, wow, because this is the time 2013. This was a time where it was like Drake and Nicki Minaj, and they were like the big artists at the time. So to see them excited about Mary J. Blige, I was like, oh, okay. And I remember going to that concert at the end of the charity event. It was a long day. We had a whole long day of school. Then we had to go at like 5 o'clock to the charity event downtown. Stay there for like 2-3 hours, and it was a whole big thing, right? And I remember we was all sitting at little dinner tables eating, and it was like, oh, performance by Mary J. Blige coming up. And I remember she performed with U2, the band U2. And I remember specifically, I never forget, when it was time for Mary J. Blige to perform, all of a sudden you heard, let's get it, the beginning of Family Affair, that beat, that instrumental, and everybody, we was just all talking and then doing whatever. When we heard that Mary J. Blige instrumental to Family Affair, everybody got up and ran. Like, we was like, up and ran, and it was like a big space where you could just stand and just watch her. And I remember I was in the middle, and I remember, I'm gonna post a picture right here. Had the iconic blonde hair. She had in like a little swoop at the top, and she was just singing, performing. And I remember it was all different ages, all different races, just in there bopping to Mary J Blige music as she was performing her medley of hits. You know, some of us had more rhythm than others, but it was just still. It was one moment where I looked around and I just seen everybody just enjoying her music, and I was like, wow, like this is really a once in a lifetime experience. And we could have our cell phones out. We wasn't allowed to, but I snuck a picture real quick. That's the picture I just showed y'all, and it was just a great experience just seeing her live, and it really brought me back to watching her live back in the day when seeing how the audience reacted to her, just feeling that experience, feeling the emotion she gives and how she connects with the audience and how the audience connects with her. And just to be a part of that was a once in a lifetime experience. And even though I didn't go to that many live concerts and performances, I'm glad that one of them was Mary J Blige, because that was really a once in a lifetime experience. And now today people make memes about Mary J Blige with her boots, how she always having her thigh high boots and she be dancing around and kicking and all that, and do her little kick dances. But that just goes to show how Mary J Blige still connects with her music and how she has that energy. Feel it when she's performing and she's dancing with the boots, because that's a part of her energy, that's a part of the experience, that's a part of her feeling the music. It's just like all these years later, Mary J Blige has stood the test of time. She's a legend, she's iconic. And just to see how versatile she is and see how much she's experimented in her career, seeing how her old music, her classics, they still hold up even to today. Mary J Blige is just really legendary. That's the end of the discussion. Like, it's like, period. She's just legendary. She's iconic. She came through. She did what she had to do. She's getting I'm glad that Mary J Blige is getting all her flowers now. Because often this industry and the public, they wait too late. But I'm glad she's receiving them because she really deserves them. So, anyways, guys, that was just my artist spotlight on the one and only Mary J Blige, and my appreciation for her music and artistry over the years. What do you guys think about Mary J Blige as an artist? What do you think about her career? And what are y'all favorite Mary J Blige songs? Let me know down below. This should be a real fun discussion. And let's get this discussion going. Like, let's really celebrate Mary in the comments down below. Please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see y'all in the next video.